Well, I sure hope that you're not in the middle of adversity, crisis, challenge right now, but you could be. And if you're not now, at some point, we all are. We all will be. If you pass through one, undoubtedly in life, you live long enough, you're going to encounter another one. This conversation today is really about turning these moments into triumph opportunities, right? Not just surviving, but thriving in the face of it. Turning trials into triumphs is the topic of our conversation today. So if you're in the middle of something, you'll find this particularly helpful. But even if not, this is fundamental to thriving and navigating all of it as a leader. Hey all, my name is Bill Gallagher. I'm the scaling coach and host of our Scaling Up Business podcast. Our show comes to you every week with something to do with growing, scaling your company, and everything that's required to get you through all of that. You'll find more than 550 shows now, a whole back catalog on everything to do with your leadership, people, strategy, execution, cash, everything about growing your business over time at scalingcoach.com. We also do a workshop at least once a month in mastering the mindset and the particular mindset and the tools around growing your business. And we've got something about the stages that we go through. We see the same stages that companies go through. What are the big stages that we see that companies navigate? And how do you move from one to the next? We've got a free course that you can take and get and go through at your own pace and think about where am I as much as you need to. And how do I navigate on from here, from where I am now into the future? So all that and more at scalingcoach.com. All right. I'm joined now by Paul Gencarella, right? Did I say that right?
Those Italian names are tough to pronounce, let me tell you. Gencarella.
Yeah, yes. Paul Gencarella. I should have checked it before we talked.
No, this is good.
We normally do. We check so many things. So, guys, Paul is a speaker and a business coach, in particular around mindset work. And he's navigated some significant challenges and has something to share with us today. He's got a lot to share on it. We'll get into his story and more in just a minute. Paul, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Bill. Thank you for your introduction and excited to have a conversation with you.
I'm always fascinated how we manage to connect with people all over the world. We were just talking with somebody in Canada earlier today, yesterday, somebody in another part of the world, talking to you on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. Christelle, our producer, is in the middle somewhere, right? We managed to connect. And yet through all of that, across cultures, across places, is like humanity, right? That connects us. Let's talk about this. How did you become a mindset coach? Why did you get into that world? Tell us maybe the longer version of your personal story.
Sure. Yeah. The version's relatively simple. I was a traditional American living in the Northeast United States, went to college, graduated college with a marketing degree. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I ended up getting into the life insurance business with Northwestern Mutual. And I figured, okay, I'll try 100% commission business for my first job out of college. Mm-hmm. And it was a challenge. It was a challenge, but with encouragement, mentors around me, and a mentor that was like a father figure, I was in it for 25 years. And maybe 20 years or 23 years into the business, he was going to sell me the business. And it was for something that I didn't really want to pay the price he was offering. And we were just not even at all, So I said to him, basically, why don't we merge with a bigger outfit? So we did. And that bigger outfit allowed me to get more clients, different clients. I was in the P&C business at that time, selling to landscapers, contractors, restaurants, and I was able to really do well with that. But your question to me was, how did I get into the mindset business? Well, being in a sales job, Bill, we all have the Zig Ziglars, the Jim Rohns, the Bob Proctors, the Tony Robbins. We all were kind of familiar with that as far as motivational type of things. I just never really truly embraced it until I found myself living in a psychiatric institution, if you will. In 2018, I had some psychiatric problems, which was just around the time of this merge. And I wanted things to get back to the way they were. And so for that whole year, I worked to get them back to the way they were. The problem with that, Bill, is doing the things that you were doing are only going to lead to the same results. So I found myself living in a psychiatric institution again, a second year in a row. So at that point, I think the people we merged with probably scratched their heads and said, we probably got bad goods here. You know what I mean? What's going on? This guy's in a psychiatric institution 2 years in a row. And I was terminated. I was fired among being clinically depressed, which I was never depressed ever in my life prior to 2018. But depressed as in sad, yes. But the fact that you want to die or want to really not live never entered my mind until then. And that was a tough 2 years that I was in from 2018 to 2020.
So you didn't have mental health issues growing up or that kind of thing, or that you're aware of? This just hit you out of the blue?
None of it, and not that I was aware of. Yeah, of course, because I was aware, right? I didn't have any mental, but looking back, Bill, you can always see things. Okay, yeah, that's that probably was an issue. Oh, this was probably an issue, but I was just so healthy physically and mentally that it probably compensated. So when I was terminated, I went to an online business. And one of the things in that online business, it was affiliate marketing. It was a stepping stone, but I got into personal development on a more serious level where I embraced it and I started studying it. And I fell into a relationship with Bob Proctor. Not personally, but he's one of the founding fathers, if you will, of the self-help industry. And I really embraced it, and I started studying it every day, and it started changing me. So I was taking psychiatric medication, and I still do to this day, but it's less. And the psychiatric medication, Bill, treats the symptoms, but the study of personal growth and development treats the cause. So now I become a better person here, and now outside has gotten better. So you live from the inside out, not the outside in. How many people are dictated by what's happening around them? Car accidents, crime scenes, daughter having a car accident, son getting arrested, whatever it may be. They let the outside world dictate to them, and I no longer do that as much. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. God forbid a loved one dies. You're not going to be steeled, but you're going to be able to bounce back much quicker. And as you said, you hope you're not facing adversity as far as your audience is concerned, the audience that are listening to us now. Best time to treat that is when you're feeling good. And when things are going well, that's when you build up
nobody
the
ever
arsenal.
wants to deal with anything then, right? You want, as you start to share this first story, thank you for talking about dealing with a mental health issue, because mostly there's a massive stigma around mental health and nobody wants to talk about their dark side or their troubles or that kind of thing. That that's very that's
absolutely
third rail, that's danger zone. So thank you.
Of course it is. Bill, think about it. If you had a heart attack or heart condition, you may be guarding that, but you'd say, yeah, I had a heart condition or I had cancer.
I'm managing this, right? Yeah.
But
I'm
not mentally stable. I have a mental illness. You know what I mean? Come on. How does that sit
you can't talk
with
about
anybody?
That, right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I kind of say it as a sticker shock, but that's
it's
generally
good to get it right out there. Yeah. And be open about it, because we all deal with different kinds of things, just like we deal with other, a whole range of issues. We all struggle with different psychological and mental things. Yeah. The other thing I think that struck me in that story is you talked about after the first episode, you wanted to get back to the way things were.
Yeah, where it was before.
Yeah. And I think very often, we saw this a lot in the pandemic, and it really changed. It was the deciding factor between the companies that thrived and the companies that failed. The people that wanted things to get back to the way they were, the people that want mostly don't have businesses today, right? Or they're a fraction of what they were, because there's never going back. Like, you can't get back. Like, there's some saying about no man ever crosses the same river twice, because neither the river nor the man are the same, right? Like, there's this thing of like, it's always a new normal, right? There's periods of greater stability and instability. The common denominator is instability, right? But there is always a new normal. And the people that leaned into, okay, what's happening now, and how do I be relevant now? How do I create value now? Is the same thing, I think, with us around mental health and our well-being and that kind of thing. It's like, where am I at right now? We've talked before. We had a conversation with John Ratliff about this in the past, about mental health, and a great deal of our strong leaders struggle with stuff, whether they recognize it or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of mental health issues.
There's challenges that way.
Depression, there's bipolar, there's ADHD, ADD. We have all of that, like whatever like affliction makes you want to say, step to the front and I'm going to run that business. Often there's some problematic parts of your psychology that might be going on there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
it's useful to be able to look at it like with wide eyes in a time when you're high functioning. I lost my dad to suicide.
How long ago?
Yeah, many years ago now. Right, it's 2008.
Okay,
and I talk about it sometimes, right? And I started dealing with it like in the forefront in 2005 when I got a call from the emergency room that he tried to kill himself. And now he was in something we call here a 5150 hold, right? Like, and growing up, my dad was a larger than life character. He was brilliant. He was a PhD, a published author, a best-selling author, a speaker, a college professor. He was my hero.
It's hard.
But he was also bipolar. And, as a younger man and early on, that was less obvious. He'd never been diagnosed that. I didn't even know what that meant. And I didn't know that term until much later in life, right? But he went through that. And as life wore on and stuff like that, he also became an alcoholic, right? And a mental health issue with substance abuse, like his life unraveled over some years until, 2005. And I got that call. And
it gave me chills because it just brings back these issues, because what we know now is not what we knew then. And if we only knew these certain things, things would be so much different. But we still can move forward and change things and make things better for ourselves and for everybody.
In my dad's case, I don't think he really he didn't want to be sober, and he didn't like the treatment, and he's just like, my ancestors, my family, extended family had alcohol. Like, I just would like a drink. I'll feel much better, but he was long past that. And he reached that point. He eventually was successful, and it took a long time to, find my peace with that and navigate what happened and be able to integrate it. Of course, I still, love him and miss him. But I can see him as a whole human being today, right? Like the things that I loved about him as a kid and what he went through, as he declined.
And you, I think you really hit the nail on the head with so many of us. And it's not just the older generation. We resign ourselves to what our condition is, whether it's chemical dependency or the fact that we're making $30,000 a year or whatever it may be. We're not where we want to be, but we just resign ourselves and we live in that box, and we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
And that's what people have to understand, is that there's tools, strategies, mechanisms out there, simple, that can help us accomplish whatever we want. And Bill, the problem on top of that is if you poll like 10 people, 8 of them won't know exactly what they want. They won't have their goals and where I'm going to be and what I want to do. You know what I mean? That's just, and probably would be 9 out of 10, and that's what we have to do. You know what I mean? That's what your audience needs to impress upon others as well, is that we need to find what we truly want. Don't chase the mighty dollar, because the dollar will chase us once we find what we love.
Well, there's what you love, what you're great at, right? And what you find satisfying, what you're actually rewarding, where you want to spend your time, what's fulfilling for you. There's a whole world of that. And then there's what you think everybody wants you to be and do.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I got to live up to expectations or whatever have you.
It's very hard, like, to separate. Like, we don't have the freedom to go, you know what, I don't really want that crap. Like, that's what my mom kept pushing on me, or that's not for me.
Yeah. No, right. I have a friend that his parents were in waste management. And in high school, we used to bust his chops all the time, teasing him, this, that, and the other thing. And he says, I'm never going to go into that business. Well, not only did he go into that business, he grew it by multi-millions of dollars. You know what I mean? Now we're calling him Wayne Izenga, the CEO of Waste Management, But, what I mean? That's the thing. You know what I mean? You don't know. Sometimes you don't know what you want to do until you try something that you don't want to do.
I have a very dear friend with a waste management company, and he's got a great business. He loves it, provides a valuable service for the community and that kind of thing. But, we like to joke he's the garbage guy. Right?
Exactly. But he's laughing all the way to the bank, right? You know what I mean?
He's had a good, I mean, he's late in his career now, but he grew up.
The point is doing what you love.
Yeah.
And Bob Proctor's famous for saying, the worst way to make money is to work. To work for it. You want to do truly what you love, and the money will follow. You know what I mean? People may say in social service that's very hard to do. It's not, because once you're happy, truly happy, everything else gets better for you. But it's not a facade. Yeah. Happiness can't just be a facade. It has to be sometimes to get yourself to that happiness, but it's a decision for me. It's not so much an emotion, Bill. When I wake up in the morning, I'm not always happy, but I make a decision on my way to the gym and talking to the people at the gym that I'm very happy. And that helps them in a certain respect. Some people, they probably want to strangle me because I'm so upbeat at 5 a.m. You know what I mean? But the point is, it's a decision. Love. My spouse. You know what I mean? Do I always love my spouse? No, but I decide to love her. She decides to love me. You know what I mean? It's a decision. And that's what we need to do in life, is we need to decide, all right, do I go on Facebook for 25 minutes or do I do something productive in my job as an entrepreneur? That's the key. It all relates,
You've encountered and dealt with many things, and we're going to share some of the experiences with your clients as well as some other family things. But I'd love for you to talk about the executive at the Northeast printing business. You talked about somebody there. I don't know who's an owner or leader.
Yeah, he was an executive, and he's worked his way up, but he was an executive in this company. And the reason I got to know him was he was a friend of a friend type thing. And we got to talking at a party once. And he said, oh, geez, I'd love to sit down with you as far as the mindset. And you're mentioning a lot of good things. I'd love to know how to better things, because his challenge really wasn't making money. It wasn't, getting things implemented. It was the people around him. The culture in that company was a bit difficult. And what we tended to realize was it wasn't so much them in the company, but it was him. How am I responding, or am I reacting to things? You know what I mean? And am I putting myself in a bad situation by not answering someone in a tactful way or a negative, sarcastic manner, and then things just kind of gruffle, and people go to their desks and work. And now with talking with myself and introducing him to this scientific philosophy, if you will, because that's what this information that we've been talking about is. It's a scientific philosophy. It's science in the sense that it's like a 1 + 1 = 2, but it's also a philosophy that you have to believe, you have to buy into, you have to practice. We have to practice our philosophies. So this individual started really learning about everybody around him and what they wanted. And it wasn't so much what he wanted as the boss or as the executive. And now he found out that by me talking to other people and finding out what they wanted and what they wanted to do for their vacations and things, he developed relationships with these people. And that's really where, when the friendship forms, that's when we can start to make things gel. And again, this doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't. But it can happen as quick as, 2 weeks or 2 years. But the point is, move in that right direction. When I try to better myself, Bill, everything around me, I said, gets better. But I need to believe that. And I need to know that. And when I know that and I believe that, I'm going to continue to do the positive things. And I'm not saying compliment others from a flattery standpoint. I'm saying truly compliment others on something that they do well. You know what I mean? Everybody has creativity. Everybody does things well, and really find out what people do well and harness that, use that. So, you know what I mean? Don't make the person that's analytical do something that's more creative. You know what I mean? Find things for them to do that's in their strengths.
Right, their strengths.
It's like the baseball pitcher that was working his way up to the majors. He had a phenomenal fastball. But his coach said to him, listen, this is what I want you to do. He's like, I know I got to work on my changeup and my curveball. He's like, no, we got to work on your fastball. He's like, I'm a fastball pitcher. He's like, yeah, we got to make you better at that. And he became a phenomenal closer in the majors. So you see what I'm saying? Sometimes we worry about what we're not good at and try to get everything all lumped in. Do well at what you're good at. And then everything else we can work on. There's not going to be that, totally 100% best at everything. And that's
we recently had a guru session with Dean Jones. We've talked to Gene Jones at the Gallup organization before about the Clifton Strengths tools there. You might look for a past episode with Dean Jones. We've done a couple of them, and lean into more of this idea of how do we discover and develop strengths with people as a leader, and with ourselves as well. Like, if you ask a very person early in their career what they want to do, and you're interviewing them, and they're like, I can do anything, like just point me in whatever. And I'm a communicating, hardworking team player, like that kind of thing, fast starter, like they're good at everything and they're ready to go. And because they don't really know yet, they don't fully know themselves, and they and so they're just looking for everything. But then if you ask me at this age, right, 40 years on, I'm like, yeah, if you have me run your operations, I'll probably bankrupt your company. But if you have me in your human leadership, in your strategy, if you have me evangelizing for the company, if you have me around those kinds of things, I'm going to be awesome. So I'm like really good at this and not really good at that. So like team cohesion and that kind of thing, I'm terrible at it. Like I have such bad interpersonal skills a lot of the time, and
right. But that's not your focus either.
Execution, right? But I know that at this age. And so how do you figure out what it is and lean into that, right? That's a useful thing to do that you're pointing to anyway.
Well, right. But, what you was just saying right there is pointing out something that you're not good at. Like everyone says, oh, I have such a bad memory, or I'm not good with names. Well, you're just reinforcing that behavior. If you want to get better at remembering people's names, do exercises that are going to help you with your mind. If you want to be better at interpersonal skills, and that's something that you really want to try to do, you can do it. It's just the mindset. But don't try to do something you don't want.
You're going to approach it in a different way, and maybe you don't even want to. There's aspects of operations I just don't want to be bothered with. I don't like it. I'm not interested in it, right? So yeah, maybe I could work on it, but it's not a thing. I am interested in the design of the organization, the design of the operations. Love that. But the day-to-day executing of them, not for me.
Right. Exactly. You know what I mean? And again, a 20-year-old, I say 20-year-old, someone in their 20s can develop this
early career. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can develop this. You know what I mean? Sometimes you and I have learned this later on in our careers, perhaps. But the point is, knowing what we know now, obviously we would be better if we're using it to our advantage.
Yeah.
But these are things for anybody. Like, believe it or not, I talked to a guy that's 75, still looking to get better. That's how Bob Proctor was. He died at 87. He was always constantly trying to get better. And that's how we all should be. But we need to try to chase our passion. If we're not passionate about it and emotionally connected to it, it's so much harder. It really is.
Well, I think to the topic of our show today, we have things that we're pursuing, that we're interested in, and then stuff happens, right? Then life happens. As we got ready for the show, you talked about cancer going through your family and your son and yourself. Talk to us about that and how you navigated that and how that went.
Yeah. 2009, my son's 5 at the time. He was, waiting for his first day of kindergarten, playing on a back porch, backwards on the chair, and it was rocking and rolling. And he went off the edge of the deck 3 steps down, smashed his head on the concrete. It was like a scrape, and it was blood. And my wife's like, "Oh, geez," took him to the pediatrician. The pediatrician, rest assured, said he's fine, his eye's fine, there's no sight issues. Send him off to school, and she did. 2 days later. He's woke up and, getting ready for school. And he said, I just peed blood in the toilet. We're like, oh, geez. So my wife and I immediately thought, okay, yeah, well, he fell 2 days ago. It's probably a contusion of some sort. So we took him to the local hospital and, he was kind of a bit irate because of needles and stuff and blood. And so they sent us up to Hasbro where they treat children much better up there. That's the reason why we were going. I thought because of that. So we get up to Hasbro. And they show us in the nurse's station, the computer screen. He's like, well, this is his healthy kidney right here. And on the right, his right kidney, that's the infected kidney. I said, okay. I'm not thinking anything of it. I said, all right, can he play soccer tomorrow? And they said, well, let's go in this room over here. So they got, escorted us into a room and we were there for a couple minutes. I said, Betty, things aren't good. She's like, what are you talking about? I said, there's Kleenex boxes, comfortable furniture. I said, this isn't good. So they came in, the doctors, they sat down. I said, so my son has cancer. They said, whoa, slow down. I said, listen, I'm not going to flip out. We're secure. And he said, well, yes, he does. He has a stage 1 Wilms tumor on his kidney. It is treatable. We are thankful that he did fall because that's traditional. When you have a Wilms tumor on your kidney, blood does go to your urine, but it could spread to the lung. It could spread to wherever. We feel as though it's contained. So at that point, my wife and I are like, are you kidding me? Our 5-year-old son, we have an older child and a younger child. He's got cancer. So we handled it subconsciously, Bill, well. You know why? Probably because it was so bananas. It was so nuts that it's not like you're stuck in traffic or you're on hold or something. You know what I mean? You were just like, holy cow, we have to, deal with this. And from that point forward, my wife and I, even non-communicatively, would be on each other's page. We talked about cancer in front of him. He was getting ready to get operated on. We talked about that. We weren't hush about anything. So he was a trooper. But a month later, I was just in such disbelief about it all that I said, how did he get this? Like, how did this happen? I checked myself and I found out that I had testicular cancer, which was just bananas. And I attribute him saving my life because maybe I would never have checked myself. You know what I mean? In that respect, maybe it would have grown and expanded or whatever have you. So he when I saw him in the hospital or when he was going for treatments, I said to him, JP, your cancer has a 91% survival rate. I said, mine has 98%. So I'm better than you. He said, he actually, weird. My mother was like, are you kidding me right now? And I said, I'm joking. And he knew I was joking. So that's kind of how we treated each other in a certain respect, that we would joke around like that. And it really brought consolation to him because he's like, hey, now Dad and I have cancer. You know what I mean? I had 2 doses of chemo. He had 37, you know what I mean? Or whatever it was. And it was just a nice bonding moment. You know what I mean? And my wife kept it all together with everything. You know what I mean? So thank God for that. So that too is a form and an example of, how we can turn trials and triumphs trials and tribulations into triumphs. Because the community came and supported us. We got, cards and gift certificates and things. It was really heartwarming, and having a son that's alive. He's 20 years old right now. We've been very blessed in that respect. But people said to me, more than one person says, listen, I just want you to know, I've had a child that died from cancer, and you're being too positive. And I said, I respect that, and I apologize, and I understand where you're coming from. But don't tell me that I'm being too positive when I've already eulogized my son. I'm not going to change my persona at all. I've decided to be upbeat and positive, and whatever comes our way, we'll handle it. She's like, okay, I respect that too, she said. So I just want you to be blindsided. And I said, no, I appreciate that. So we didn't bury our heads in the sand, Bill. We took our heads out of the sand and just looked in a different direction, like those folks you mentioned about COVID. They just decided now they had to, these restaurants, they decided to have people outside in a bubble now. So now it's the novelty of sitting in a bubble in 20-degree weather in Rhode Island. You know what I mean? In a restaurant with heaters and stuff.
Work better in some places than others, right? Yeah. There's a movie, it's really old now. I don't remember what year it is. There's an old movie, Falling Down, Michael Douglas. Yeah. And it's about a guy, like an engineer, like an aerospace engineer, who loses his job, and then he moves home and his relationship collapses. And so he's going through like a life transition where his whole identity, a great deal of stress and personal identity loss. And then he in the middle of all that, he encounters a bunch of these like everyday frustrations and annoyances. He's stuck in traffic, and he's hassled by someone in a retail environment. Anyway, he loses his crap and he goes on a murdering spree. And it's a very dark thing, but it's a fabulously well done dark thing, movie of its time. But I think there's something really interesting about it. Like we have different stresses, right? Like you dealt with it pretty well, but when your son had his thing, like that's terrifying on a parent, even if it's a good survival chance, like that's stressful. Nobody wants their 5-year-old to go through an illness of any kind, let alone a possibly life-threatening one. Nobody wants their 5-year-old to come say they got blood in their urine, right? You don't want your 80-year-old to say that. You sure don't want your 5-year-old, right? Right. But in the middle of all that, then there's the everyday things of life, right? So we're going through these stresses, and then we get stuck in traffic. Somebody cuts us off. Somebody's rude to us. We're stuck on hold. Then we can get so triggered. I mean, fairly minor things, but in the context, like they can cause us to completely lose it. And not be able to manage them well, and not know how to step back and say, okay, wait a minute, I need to breathe. I need to talk to somebody else. Or we can spool up in our own head, like going crazy with internal talk that's not working in your favor. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. That's part of the whole persona of it all is it starts with a thought. It truly starts with a thought. And when I go into a situation where I am curt or short with someone or anything, it's because I didn't prepare myself for that, and I didn't allow myself to be. And I kick myself now being the guy that I am now, because my wife calls me on the carpet all the time. You didn't sound too self-help on the phone with that customer service person. And I'm like, you're right. I didn't, and that's the thing. It's leaving the impression of increase, leaving people better off than when you first engaged with them, and that's what the focus of mine has been. Am I having a charismatic attitude to someone? You know what I mean? Am I being uplifting to someone? And you have to constantly be on guard for that and be ready for it.
I remember when September 11th, 2001 happened, right? The first thing that happened, right, is, sort of the attack on the towers and the plane crash and crashes and the Pentagon and I remember like waking up and going, oh, everything just changed, right? I'm like, I have no idea like the ramifications and long-term thing, but everything just changed in a moment, in a day, right? Like, and of course, today you can't just go wait at the gate with your friends or meet them or whatever. You get cavity search to get on an airplane to the neighboring city, right? Like, So everything did change in so many enduring ways in that moment. But I remember in the middle of it, and like at the time, I was a pretty active private pilot, and like I couldn't fly anymore. And like I was denied something that I really loved, and everything slowed down for a minute, and we were in a state of shock about it. And I remember that I looking out my window as I do every morning, and then taking a walk around the neighborhood, looking at the trees and thinking, well, the trees are still here. The sun still rises and sets. The moon still comes up and down. The birds are still tweeting. The grass is growing. Like the wind is blowing. Like life didn't end. Right. It's just like some way that we look at the way things operate shifted, and we're in the middle of a crisis right now. But like just looking up into the trees gave me perspective. And then, of course, the economy changed dramatically and our company was on the ropes. And then I dealt with that over the coming years. And again, I found like change my perspective, get out of my own head, go look at the trees, notice nature and people and smiles, and that like not everybody is as dark as I am right now. Look at that little kid. He's delighted, right? Get out of my own head and get out into the world around me. I shared recently with a teen family member who was going through something. I'm like, look around you. What's going on? And he was, deep in his own mind about stuff. And he's like, oh, yeah. And then a couple of years later, he's like, that conversation about noticing the sounds, the colors, the light, the trees, nature, like did more for me than lots of things in that time. Like, isn't that funny? I didn't really think about it that much, but it helped me. It helped him. I think about it now all the time, right? Like, get out of your own head. If the conversation in your head isn't helpful or friendly, talk to somebody else. Look outside.
Bill, we got 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day in our minds, right?
Yes.
80% of them are negative. Yes. 80%. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you need to force yourself to replace a negative thought with a positive one, or another negative one's going to go in, is my point. And that's what we have to truly understand. But you were onto something about the trees and everything. Every single day of my life, in my journal, 1 through 10, things that I'm grateful for. And it could be as simple as an electric toothbrush, or indoor plumbing, or my cell phone for whatever matter. You know what I mean? Things that I can get emotionalized with, not just writing them down, but getting emotional, like, oh yeah, I do love that. That's great, And I always say to people when we complain about what's going on in this country, we should all have a 30-day pilgrimage to like Haiti, every one of us, and see how they live, and then come back here, how much appreciative. It'd be like Scrooge, you know what I mean? Getting visited by 3 ghosts. You'll be a different man, and it's the truth.
I don't think we often realize. You turn the faucet and clean, potable, well, depending on where you live, clean, potable water, drinkable water comes out. And if you turn the other faucet, hot water comes out. That's a flipping miracle, but we take it for granted. We flip on the light, we flip on the switch, and a light comes on.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a miracle, right? My great grandfather that I'm named after, when he was first living on the East Coast, they didn't have electrical stuff yet. It was just still coming. And he actually had a gas distribution, and they had gas lights, right? Which created some issues as well. You think electrical problems, pump gas all around as much as they did, it was a big issue there. And then he came and built the first power grid on the West Coast, electric power grid. Right. And, electric lights were a brand new thing going on then. It's a flipping miracle, like a life-changing thing. Being grateful on the regular can help break a funk. I don't journal it, but I have now just one daily appointment or reminder to be grateful. And, I just reflect. Sometimes I might say thank you to somebody, but a lot of times I just think, what is it that I'm grateful for right now? Noticing things in the world and thinking, there's a lot that I have to be grateful for. Because You jump on social media, especially if you love Instagram like I do, and you could just feel bad about, oh, he's in a private jet. Oh, they're in a great beach resort. Oh, like you could just, oh, they look better than I do. Oh, look at his stomach. Like that looks good. And you could just feel terrible about yourself, right? Like, or you could go, you know what? I have a great house. I have a great life. I have a great family, and I'm dealing with stuff always, right?
And it's going to get better. You know what I mean? Because there's times when I write things that I'm currently grateful for, and then 6 through 10, things that I'm grateful for that will be happening, whether it be an income, a vocation, whatever, a relationship,
you are wishing for, wanting, intending, working on.
In the future, being grateful for it. You know, so that's manifesting it then in and of itself. So it's not so much going after things; it's really attracting things to us. You know, why does this always happen to me? Well, because that's what you're attracted to. It's a universal law of cause and effect. The thoughts that I think, the things that I say, the actions that I do, if they're in a negative manner, guess what? They're going to come back to me in some way, shape, or form negatively. But if you do it in a positive, genuine way, it's going to come back positive. It's impossible for it not to. It's like the law of gravity. You drop the pencil.
Before we run out of time, I'm going to have you tell one more story about a business applied on the sales side of things. But let me just remind our listeners, viewers, that our own website, scalingcoach.com, has all these back shows on all these topics and more. So there's lots of resources. You can find a little nugget about almost anything that you're grappling with by searching that at scalingcoach.com. And then we do a workshop every month on growth mindset for the business and the tools, all the scaling up tools. So that work, on particular around the organizational growth, different from what we're talking about, is all scalingcoach.com. So tell us about the online watch business and how that shifted in the work that you did there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to stem off real quick of what you just said, the biggest investment all of us can make is in ourselves, right? So that's what people just poo-poo. So my client in the online business, he started selling used watches, then he started selling new watches, and then he started selling both, new and used. Yeah. And he felt that he hit a wall and he was stuck. At just, I think he was just over, $100,000 a year or whatever. He wasn't on dire need of anything, but he wanted to really, excel. And, I had a conversation with him and said, listen, if you truly want to turn your annual income into your monthly income, just make the decision. He's like, yeah, I don't understand what you're talking about from concept, though. I said, well, first of all, you have to become one with your decision. Once you decide that you're going to do it, you need to focus on it. And he's like, all right, well, help me out. I said, okay, well, you need to know two things about being successful in life from a financial standpoint, especially. You need to know where you are and where you're going. So you want to go in that up direction, right? Okay. When you see where you are, you may not be happy with those results. Fine. Don't get emotional about your debts, your bills, your relationships, or things that are not going right. Just be neutral about it. Just think of it as matter of fact. And I said, and where you're going. You
mean accept it, allow for it. Yeah, don't obsess over it.
That's what it is. Just don't become emotional. Just okay. Like, someone won't get emotional about something that happens to me that I'm emotional about. They'll see it, and they may be a little bit, but the point is they'll be able to handle it, from a non-emotional standpoint. Just be neutral. I'm not saying be dead, but just be neutral about where you are. And where you're going is your future self. Become emotional about that. How are you going to see it? What are you going to see when you're there at that goal? What are you going to taste? What are you going to feel? How are you going to be? How are you going to act? What are some of the things you're going to do? And let that bleed into you and manifest into your imagination. That's a higher mental faculty of ours. So once you do that, you're well 2/3 beyond the way there to making your income, your annual to your monthly. And what I mean by this, Bill, is that most people don't understand that concept that I'm talking about. They're too emotional about where they are, and they're not emotional at all about where they're going. They're neutral about where they're going. So it's reversed. And
Right.
you're never going to
The
get out of debt by
obsession, the
focusing on debt.
focus, the passion is misplaced in that
Yeah,
case.
yeah, big time. And again, you don't need to be bananas like me and very energetic and everything, but just be emotional in your mind about really where you want to go and not where you are. And that's number one. And then two, success is 95% mindset. 95% mindset and 5% strategy and such. But we tend to reverse that as well. Maybe 5% mindset and 95% strategy. And it's not that way at all.
Operating with the same thing.
So with him, it was more or less trying to show him how the mind works and how the fact of the matter is you want to change your annual income into your month. And I have to be transparent with you. I still work with him, but I have to be transparent with you. He's not making $100,000 a month, but he's making $50,000 a month, which $600,000 a year. People would be like, "What?" No, but he's only halfway there. You know what I'm saying? But he's understanding the concepts now, Bill.
Yeah. Well, you've moved significantly from where he was.
Of course he did. And you can have quantum leaps. Once you do these little changes, you make huge steps. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's just changing ourselves. We don't need everything out there.
That's a great place to lead it. Keep focusing on where your mind is at, where your attention, where your passion and emotion live, and you'll make all the difference. Paul Gencarella Jr.
Amen.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll put your email address on the screen here and in the show notes there, so you can reach out to Paul and say, "Hey, and how are you working, and what are you doing," and that kind of thing. I've so appreciated and you sharing your stories so openly with us today. Big thanks and shout out to my friend and mentor, Vern Harnish, who created the whole scaling up framework that we use. And to the folks at Storyon, who get our show ready and done every week. Christelle, Seth, Cameron, Tom, and team. Thanks again, everyone, for watching, for listening. Until we talk to you next time, keep scaling.